this is this very like good, specific, tangible example of why relationships are hard. Hi, this is Ola.
And this is Christian.
We can't come to the phone right now because we're recording our podcast.
Leave us a message after the beep.
Good morning.
Morgen.
Guten Morgen.
How did you sleep?
Not enough, because we chatted too late.
After we did 5 hours of chatting.
On the podcast, we chatted more in bed.
No, it's worth it. What are we going to talk about today?
Conflict resolution, because before we filmed yesterday's first podcast, we had a little moment. It wasn't conflict.
Guess for us it was.
For us it was because we barely ever have any fights. But it was a lack of maybe understanding of certain perceptions or something. Yeah,
I guess there's it's two lives, right, with two different schedules and two different loads of things happening. And I guess sometimes as well for the other person, that not knowing and the assumption of knowing kind of or even just like as basic as something that's kind of creating some anxiety, say for work or stuff that you need to do. I guess the time management you have in your head is never really realistic for me anyway, where you kind of think like, okay, I can do this in 2-3 hours. There's going to be, my assumption is that this is going to take this amount of time. And, this is where it's going to slot. And then that time is kind of gone. So then in my head, you feel like, God, I missed my window for doing my work. But it was a very quick, I think,
conversation. I mean, it never escalated to a point where you can consider it any sort of conflict or fight. There's definitely a transition from being alone to being together, and we both are such free spirits in a sense that we're so used to being independent and doing our own stuff in our own time, when we want it, how we want it. And so I think that's generally a big adjustment for both of us, is to fit both of our lives into one calendar. And generally it's super easy because we tend to do a lot of stuff at a similar time, because we wake up late, both of us. We go to bed both really late. We like to train at night, and so there's a lot of similarities. So it kind of makes life naturally easy. Yeah. But then there's the bits which we can't control, which is work and stuff like that, which you then have to kind of figure out. And I think that's where we're like, oh, wait, what? Like, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that, and I didn't sort that out. And it's learning to communicate that, and then to say, okay, let's look at it logically from the point of view of each one of us as an individual and then as a couple, and like what is the big win for us, and how do we prioritize having that big win so that we can get to a place that it needs to go, and then like using that kind of logic, right, to slot stuff in.
Yes, and also to be able to say yes and no in kind of in the realistic kind of timetable, and to be able to say it in a way where it's not I guess it doesn't, not that it would ever kind of like affect, because I think we're in a position where we can say no without feeling guilty about saying no. But I know that that's something that is outside of us, and with work or with friends or with family, that can be quite hard to do sometimes. I
think in general people think of compromise as settling, and they compromise very early on when they're seeking a partner.
I see. But
I think the real the real hard bit is compromising when you've already found someone. And compromising in ways that are not so obvious, right? And it's like understanding that something is important to somebody else without kind of self-sabotaging what's important to you, and just like having that fluid and open conversation so that you can together figure out a spot that's like in the middle. And I completely get, like, for me, it's a huge personal development. Like being with you, or in most relationships, but being with you really has taught me so much patience, because I want to do something and you're very good at telling me, oh, but we need to do this today. Or I thought we're going to do that because we're already, you know, planned that or prioritize that. And sometimes I can get quite like impulsive. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay, but let's go and do this. I think we're both like that. We're both spontaneous. So oftentimes we'll want to do something and then we'll be like, wait, but we've already scheduled this, or that has priority and we need to sort that out. So I, from a very impatient person, have like maybe gone one less step towards my impatience. Like I'm a little bit more patient because I've bbin like in training for 4 years now of like, wait, no, it's okay to do that later and nothing will, a Polish saying, co się zwlecze, to nie uciecze, which is like, what's gonna, you know, get delayed will not kind of run away, right? So it's fine to do that later. And so I'm learning to do that. And also like, it helps me because I know something's also important to you. So if we have plans and something is important to you, but I'm like, oh, but I wanted to do that. And then I'm like, wait, no, this is more important because that thing's important to you. And I want to make sure that you also get to do the stuff that's important to you. So it's like a really good lesson for me. In kind of, you know, just developing that trait. Yeah, I
totally, I think everything that you said there, it definitely, what's the word?
Resonates.
It definitely resonates with me as well. And, you know, the fact where it is patience and compromise. And then with that, a resolution comes out, right? Because then there's understanding your, you know, you have the things that you want to do, but also you know that there's your partner that has important stuff they want to do. And sometimes it's good, we can do those things on our own, but sometimes we have stuff that we do together. So it's kind of like manage that and just go with a real kind of clear, kind of non-defensive, open way. And you know, 99.5% is basically that. Yeah,
I think this whole chat is actually a good example of conflict resolution, even though technically that wasn't really conflict, it was just like a minor hiccup. It's the fact that we spend time talking about it and just kind of like figuring out what are certain like motivators for certain thoughts, certain actions, and just analyze like how can we do better next time, which I think is what we apply throughout our relationship in any situation. And we sort of do this. And I think why this is this very like good, specific, tangible example of why relationships are hard. And I don't consider our relationship hard because I think it's like the easiest thing ever. Because my partner meets me in the middle and therefore it makes it just like feel like a breeze. But it is hard in a sense that you have to spend a lot of time thinking, analyzing, going through this kind of stuff to make sure you're understood and the other person feels understood and you can be on the same page and you know where to go next. And it's hard in a sense that you have to be quite self-aware and train yourself in that self-awareness and recognition of patterns and recognition of certain anxieties and feelings and things, and just kind of like seeing them for what they are and stepping outside of yourself to then get enough distance to say, this is the feeling, this was the trigger, and next time this is how I would do it to make it better. So I think, there's like hardship in that, right? Like being able to do the actual hard work of having a good, solid relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the any could have beens will most probably turn into conflict.
Yes.
That could have easily turned into a conflict.
100%.
If there was that pull between, I don't know, it could be anything from being defensive to ego to not thinking about the other person to not being self-aware. And I think there's a line between being self-aware and compromising and being able to think about the other person and feeling like you're stepping on eggshells. It's a totally different thing.
Yes.
Because one is, I don't think this is going to work. I'm not going to say anything about it, but I'm going to just kind of tread on this kind of like thin layer of ice.
Yeah. But that's, I think, related to the fact that consistently, your partner is showing you anything can be talked about.
Yeah.
Because that's
without escalating. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we use a lot of humor as well.
Yes.
So I think that kind of helps. And I know sometimes it can be really hard because sometimes you do need space to just kind of figure out what the conversation was about, and just to kind of not because you're resenting someone, but just because you're just absorbing, you're just kind of processing. But I think we do use a lot of humor where kind of like after kind of a bit of time, it's kind of like, I mean, that was...
And you're way better at it than I am.
Oh, no, I disagree. I think you're better. I think you're kind of like, you're definitely like, I think you process faster in general.
Definitely.
Speed is not one of my... it's not one of my strengths. And I understand something, but I think you also have worked on your emotions a lot longer than me in terms of kind of knowing how to separate stuff and knowing how to place things. So I understand something very quickly, but then I think I just need to kind of file it in the right bits.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's relationships are hard because it's not. I mean, it's hard just being on your own, right?
Yes.
In a sense, you still have to work on stuff, but with a relationship, you have to have a lot of things in mind. You have to be able to think about two people at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot of puzzle pieces because figuring stuff on your own is already hard as is.
Yeah.
And throw in like another person, it's a whole other ball game, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to figure out so many things.
And that's where the conflict comes. I think when someone is not able to meet you in the middle, as you were saying, and to just be selfish in the negative sense, where no one else matters. I'm not meaning about being selfish with your emotion and with what's right for you, because I think that has to be a priority as well.
Yes.
But be able to discuss it in a way that it's good for the greater, the future of the partnership. So it is hard, but like you, I don't find it like work, and I don't find it like it's just a natural. I mean, I don't know if like an extension. I don't know if that sounds like a codependency, but like it feels like, and I think maybe like finishing the point about assumption, I think because it has been easy and because we are kind of moving in the same ways, in the downside of that is that the assumption is that it's always on the same page. Yes,
exactly. But that's the downside.
But that's but obviously
it's not.
It's not, because we're two different human beings, and as similar as two people are,
you're still separate entities.
And it should be like that, obviously.
I think there's also compromising, meeting someone in the middle. And sometimes that middle is not 50-50. Sometimes that middle is 20-80. Sometimes that middle is 70-30. Like it varies, and it's not counting how many times you've met someone in the middle.
Right.
And it's meeting someone in the middle in a genuine way. It's like not seeping with resentment.
Yeah.
Now I've compromised and I'm doing your thing.
I'll remember this for the future.
I'll remember it,
yes.
and I'm not actually going to put my heart into the thing I'm doing, because I think that in itself is already anti-compromise, right?
Yeah.
And it's forming another conflict that's then going to blow up.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, if you already are doing something, you should do it with your heart, right? And just do it honestly and in a genuine way, and you're actually showing up in all its necessary forms, and knowing that you're not missing out. Like just because you're doing that thing, like if we have to prioritize some of your stuff today, it's not missing out for me, because making sure you're happy and fulfilled and being able to do certain duties that you have means bringing our relationship up, right? And therefore it's the common good, which means it's a win for both of you, right? And it's like understanding that as you enter a relationship is that you're forming an extra entity outside of yourself. And I don't think it's codependence. I think it's understanding what a relationship is, right? It's like codependence is we become one thing and then we forget that we are separate people. I think compromise teaches you that you are still two separate people. It's just sometimes you have to compromise for the better good of the entity that is both of you together in a relationship. And I think that's the part where people sometimes, I think, kind of trip up, because they think, oh, well, I always do the thing that he wants. So why does he never? And always and never is also a trap. And it's like, that's not the point, right? Like, right, for me right now, my priority is, I know that I'm doing something new and big, and there's a big shift in how things work. I've got to put aside a lot of time to create something, and it's a whole new shift in our relationship, right? And I'm also well aware all the work you're doing is a big part of why we're able to have a separate company, another company that is based on the music production, composition stuff, right? And it's like, it's not me versus you. Yeah. It's us. Yes, and it's our relationship and building our dream, right? And the final goal for us is us having freedom to do whatever the heck we want, whenever we want. And therefore, both of these things are building towards that. And it's like seeing that bigger picture and remembering it when you compromise on stuff, right? And we rarely ever, I think, have those moments where we're like, oh, I have to compromise, because I think we deeply understand what we're working towards. Yeah,
totally. There's always a reminder for that, but we do understand that. I think something that it's important, I think you touched a little bit before, was about people pleasing versus saying no. And I think we both become better as people pleasing. Also on the kind of the dating side, when you start a process of dating, especially both of us, we never had any experience on the hectic online kind of dating. We both had long relationships, and I kind of missed the boat. And I remember actually at one point saying to a friend of mine, I'm so glad I missed that boat, because that sounds like a nightmare. Yeah, but obviously, which it really was. It was a jungle. Yeah. But I found it, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I found it really hard at the start to have, I guess, that honesty that we have now about saying, no, actually, that doesn't work for me. That's the compromise. To other people. Yeah. That, it's how long did it take you to be able to, I guess, from before to the dating to kind of where you are now in a relationship where you're very good at separating, like you were saying, you were feeling guilty about something, but then you also, had the, your mind went towards the, well, actually, no, this is what we had planned, and this is actually fine. There's no real time pressure with this. It was such a quick way of getting to that point. How did you come about that? How long did it take you to kind of be in that place where you are now?
I don't know. I think there's like so many different factors of like, having gone to therapy for nearly 2 decades at this point, on and off. But then in dating, I feel like it took me a while to be like, it's okay to say no to people.
Yes, yeah.
It's okay to tell them I'm not interested. And it's not mean. It's not selfish in any way. In fact, it's a blessing for the other person because you're saving time.
Yes.
You're saving time for both of you.
Yes.
And it's the sense of like having to be brutally honest with yourself and what you're seeking, and knowing that if you say yes to compromising on your actual values and the thing you're looking for now will mean a much more longer dragged out version that will somehow involve way more just complex feelings and resentment that is so unnecessary. And I think if you can work on yourself enough to know who you are and what you want in your partner, you can decide way faster. And there's different ways of figuring out if the partner is right for you or not. And also utilizing each time you go out on a date to figure out, oh, this is not what I want.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Therefore, I think what I want is that.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like the process of elimination.
Yes.
But yeah, it took a while because at the beginning, I was just like, oh, how do I say no? Like, how do I go about it nicely? And how do I not hurt their feelings?
Yeah, how do I come across?
But it's also like looking at it the other side. It's like, how do you know someone is that interested in you anyway? How do you know that they think you're the person they want to spend time with? So it's like, it's just an assumption anyway that you're making that somehow they're going to be missing out
because
if you say no.
Yeah.
So it's just like, just be honest about how you feel and let the other person meet you in that honesty and tell you how they feel.
Yeah.
Right? And also there's scenarios where you tell people how you feel and they react defensively and they get angry and whatever, and just being okay with that. Right? And it's like, that's their prerogative, their choice to be able to react however they want. You've done your part of the adult thing to just be honest and tell the other person.
Yeah, because you had both, right? You had the initial, which was similar to me, I guess even guilt of even swiping, without even maybe, like you were saying, like what is the point of even having that feeling? But I think because it was such a new way of interacting, I guess. Yeah. But then you also had to say no to people that were really interested in you after a couple of days, so that they were, already saying, you should meet my parents. Yeah. And I think that was a little bit later on in your dating, so you had more experience and you also knew how to. But that's also really hard, isn't it? When you so kind of someone is basically saying, I really, really like you to the point that I want you to meet my parents. I mean, and
you also are tempted,
of course,
because you're like, oh, like this. It's so nice to have someone like you, and it's so nice to have someone like you so much. They already want you to be a part of something bigger, and it's so like tempting to be accepted and be part of a tribe and belong. Yes. Of course, there's a part of you that's like, yes, that's what I've been seeking. But you got to remember, like,
the full picture. The
full picture. It's not just that you're seeking. It's other things. And there's moments where you already felt like this wasn't working. That wasn't. So it's like, what's the point of going that next step when you already know there's some things that aren't going to work out?
When you go to the place where it's like, I guess that could be nice. I think that's already I guess is the trap that you keep mentioning in the other episodes as well. I think you need to really see the full picture, especially if someone has qualities that you like and they're good looking. Like, obviously it's not about the look, but everyone in this world is attracted to someone. It's the initial thing, right? Yeah. And I think the experience takes that away. What's underneath everything that you're presenting. especially on the dating kind of apps. You know, you're presenting yourself not 100% of who you are, like 2000%. You know, it's like the best picture, the best kind of most perfect bio. And then you meet the person, and then you need to live to that expectation and present yourself. It's really hard to really, you know, have enough dates to be able to actually know where this person is and if it's right or she's right for you. And also be able to say no.
Yeah.
And you became really good. You know,
which is why, well, all the steps you mentioned, like I through experience, started changing stuff up, right? Because my profile, as you remember, had some pictures of me where I looked completely constipated because I was skydiving and I could have chosen any other shot in that skydive, but I chose one that I felt depicted my true self. It's like I was scared of doing something, but I did it anyway. And I'm not afraid to show that side of me that's scared and that's vulnerable. And I was like, just looking so foolish. But I was like, any person that can see this picture and not judge it on the fact that my face looks ugly on it, but judge it on the fact that
I liked it.
There's a side of me that is completely okay with not looking my best. And that's okay with making fun of myself.
Yes.
That's the kind of person I was seeking. And that's why my profile was like, yes, there's a nice photo of me. There's a photo of me smiling. And there's a photo of me traveling. But then there's a photo of me that's like self-deprecating humor.
Yeah, because
that's the kind of person I was seeking, is someone who's gonna be able relate to that.
Yeah.
And our bios were just as weird as one another because we were seeking a specific type of person. And then there was the stage of like, how do you get to know someone fast enough in a way that, you know, and that was why I had so many questions that I was asking before I even went out on a date with someone, already on the phone, texting, and, you know, and then on the dates. And so I think there's ways to filter stuff out. There's ways to find stuff out, and a way to keep yourself level-headed and remind yourself that what you're seeking is bigger.
Yes.
And and not fall into that little trap that's so comfortable and so easy. And so like, maybe I don't feel that for that person yet, but they're already feeling it. So it's so safe, right?
Yes.
Because I'm not risking anything at this moment, which is also like, if you're not risking, then are you really going to get the reward you're seeking? Because it already feels like you're not starting off at the same point, right? So maybe it's already not the thing that's going to work. And I think with you, I felt like I was risking everything because it felt so, it like hit me like, you know, a massive wall, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much for this person, and I feel like they're ticking all the boxes. And in fact, there's potentially none of the boxes even matter anymore, because I have a sense of this deep connection already after our first date, already after the first time we spoke on the phone.
Yes.
And the couple of days we were texting, it already felt like, I think this person knew me in another life.
Right.
And it was
it was a difference already.
Yeah, it was so uncanny, and it was so scary. And then we had a whole ice age where you needed time. And it was the scariest thing to like exist in suspension like that. But it was important, because otherwise we wouldn't have had this.
Yes.
Which is so, the reward was worth the risk of putting yourself fully out there.
Totally. And having that, as you were saying, that complete honesty from the start, but also from the pictures and the bio, you know, just being like, what's the point of trying to create? I think we both experienced heavily relationships or flings or whatever it is with people that wear a mask.
Yeah.
And that they're, you know, and then at one point they're like, oh, actually, this is my true self.
Yeah.
Why are you not like this? And so we definitely don't want to waste time. How did you navigate? So you had, what, like 6,000 likes in 3 weeks or something? So obviously you became very good at saying no. But but how did you, like, I think for a guy is totally different in the sense of like, in the likes that you receive. I think there's still a thing of like the guys are kind of liking more than you know, maybe I don't know if I even had 5% of that.
But that's because guys, I think, swipe right on anybody. Not you, but I think in general, right? So 95%, 98% of those 6,000 likes was just trash. Like, I'm not calling people trash, but just the match was just not it, right? Like it's somebody that's seeking something completely different than what I was, and which is why I had to A/B test my profile, and I had to like redo my profile a couple of times, like different pictures, different description, to just really weed out the people that I knew they're not looking for what I'm looking for, right? And they're interested in something completely different. So it took a while to really get the groove of like, oh, if I change this and that will get me the likes that I'm actually looking for. And then from that, I need to go and speak to them, and just from the get-go, be completely open, be completely myself, and just see if that's something they resonate with. Yeah. And if they don't, next, right? Because there's no point trying to sell yourself to somebody. Yeah. I mean, it's natural. We all do it, and you can't avoid it because we're human and we want to be liked. But there is really no point when you're seeking a relationship to make somebody like you when they don't, right? And it's like that challenge, that like chase that you feel you need to do in your 20s, it's so pointless because it's like, you're just trying to convince somebody of something that they're not feeling. And eventually it's going to unravel. So it's like, if I would talk to someone, I would text them and I would say whatever that day I was thinking, and I would talk to them, and I didn't feel they resonated with that, I wouldn't keep trying until they did, because it's like, well, you're also just not the right match for me. Yes. Yeah. Like, it's not about you buying what I'm selling. It's also, am I buying what you're selling? Yes. And, of course. And it's not in like some kind of, stuck up, snobby way. It's just seriously like, let's take the rosy glasses off and let's seriously look at each other as potential life partners, which affects everything in your life, right? Marriage and the person you spend your life with will affect every single aspect of your life. So from the get-go, I was looking at things with like a critical eye, because I don't know. Yeah, and you have to create a filtering system, I guess, because there was just an immense wave of male attention that was coming, and likes that you were like, okay, well, these... all the shirtless pictures. No, like immediate swipe left. Yes. That's the point. Yeah. Again, the dating apps, a lot of it, it's there for one purpose as well, and loads of really weird, people having affairs where they are on Tinder, then a friend of a friend sees a person, and all that drama that goes, or people that have a partner. And because I think on the dating apps you can put people that are in open relationships, I think. Yes. But obviously that wasn't my setting. But there were so many people that would be like, hey, I'm in an open relationship, would you be fine? I was like, well, no, because I put this and you already lied. On the... That happened to me on a date. Oh, yes. I went, and then at the end of the date, he was like, oh, by the way, I'm in it. And I was like, why did you waste all this time? Well, like, that's time that I'll never get back. Yes. And I'm completely uninterested in that. And it's like, why couldn't you? And that's a very good example of trying to sell yourself, right? And like having that mask. And then kind of like, it's manipulation. It's like trying to like trap somebody in something. Like, oh, maybe by that time they'll like me enough that this won't matter. No, it matters. Yes. To me, it matters. Because you're starting something with a lie already. So it's... It's so pointless. That's funny.